I saw my friend Carol give my son Tyler a firm embrace. She ruffled his dark hair and said, "We're going to have so much fun tonight. Aren't we, buddy?" Tyler, who was already examining the board games Carol had packed, nodded enthusiastically. I picked up my vehicle keys and pocketbook and made my way to the door. Tyler's joyful expression as I turned to wave him off reminded me of the phone call that had initiated this whole situation 2 weeks prior. Mom had abruptly stated, "Elsie, your father and I have decided to make the anniversary party adults only, following our customary small conversation. You will thus have to leave Tyler at home. We're hoping for a classy evening. No kids roaming about. But Tyler is now 7 years old, Mom. He is quite well behaved in social situations. You are aware of that. I apologize, but this requirement has previously been explained to every guest. No exclusions." I kept my phone close to my ear while I roamed my kitchen. Does Megan also have to abide by this rule? Does she leave her children at home? My sister Megan, who is 3 years older than me, had 3 kids, ages 4 to 10. Then Mom had hesitated a little too long. Obviously, everyone is affected. Megan's kids as well. Mom, it seems unfair. I am a parent by myself. I have a hard time finding daycare. You'll discover the solution. You always do. I let out a sigh. All right. I'll get someone to keep an eye on Tyler. I pondered why I had consented to go as I stood at the entrance watching Carol and Tyler set up a Monopoly game. Family get-togethers had grown more awkward since my divorce from Greg 3 years ago. I forced a grin and said, "Have fun," before shutting the door. I strolled up to my car, a beat-up Honda that was 6 years old. An pricey robot vacuum cleaner was in a covered package in the back seat. For months, my parents had been griping about how difficult it was to keep their large home tidy. Even though I was currently barely able to pay my own expenditures, I had saved for 3 months to purchase it. I had time to reflect on the 20-minute trip to my folks' suburban house. I had always thought that my parents' treatment of Megan and me was oddly out of proportion, but I had dismissed it as the result of my own fears. They spent more time with Megan's children and were more thrilled about her accomplishments, but I assumed it was only because she had 3 kids and I only had 1. I noticed the line of automobiles already parked along the street as I came into the driveway of my parents' 2-story colonial home. I inhaled deeply, picked up the bulky present from the rear seat, and made my way to the front door. There was a lot of laughter and conversation in the home when I arrived. Aunts, uncles, and family friends, all dressed in their semi-formal finest, gathered in the kitchen and living room in groups of around 20. And just as Mom had promised, there wasn't a child in sight. Elsie. Finally. Mom rushed over, looking elegant in a blue dress, her gray-streaked hair styled perfectly. Instead of taking the gift I was struggling to hold, she grabbed my arm. "Come help me in the kitchen. We need to get the appetizers out. Can I say hello to everyone first?" I asked, nodding toward Aunt Linda, who I hadn't seen in months. "There'll be time for that later. The food is more important right now." I set my gift with the others on a side table. "Where's Megan? Shouldn't she be helping too?" Mom waved her hand dismissively. "She's running late. She'll be here soon. Now, come on." I followed Mom into the kitchen, feeling that familiar sting. Of course Megan was late. And of course it was fine. If I had been late, I'd never hear the end of it. For the next 30 minutes, I arranged cheese platters, filled water glasses, and set out napkins while Mom directed me like a drill sergeant. Through the kitchen doorway, I could see relatives laughing and catching up, something I was apparently not allowed to do. Finally, Dad called everyone to the dining room. My father, still handsome at 65 with his full head of silver hair, stood at the head of the table. He'd always been quieter than Mom, letting her make most of the decisions, including how to treat their daughters. I took my assigned seat, noticing that 2 places next to my parents remained empty, clearly reserved for Megan and her husband Dan. As we all settled in, Dad began to say a few words, thanking everyone for coming to celebrate their milestone anniversary. Just as people started making toasts and my uncle was about to present his gift, the front door burst open. There was Megan, her husband Dan behind her, and all three of their children, Emma, Jackson, and little Lily, tumbling in behind them. My jaw dropped. I looked toward my parents, expecting shock or at least mild disapproval. Instead, Mom jumped up from her seat with a delighted, "There they are." She rushed over to hug each grandchild, cooing and fussing over them. Dad beamed proudly. I sat frozen in my chair, watching as Megan and Dan took their places at the table as if nothing was amiss. Mom quickly set up a small table in the corner of the living room for the kids, bringing them plates piled high with food. From where I sat, I could hear Megan's children shouting and giggling, making more noise than Tyler ever would have. And yet, my parents just smiled indulgently in their direction. I gripped my water glass so tightly I thought it might shatter. All I could think was, why does she get to break the rules? Why are her kids allowed when mine isn't? But I said nothing. I smiled through gritted teeth, ate the dry chicken my mother had overcooked, and waited for the right moment to get answers. When everyone finished eating dinner, there was a short break before dessert. I saw my chance and stood up, my legs shaky with anger. I caught my parents' eyes and motioned them to follow me to the hallway, away from the other guests. "What's going on?" I asked, keeping my voice low. "Why are Megan's kids here when you specifically told me not to bring Tyler?" My parents exchanged uncomfortable glances. Mom opened her mouth to speak, but before she could answer, Megan appeared beside us, champagne glass in hand. "What's the problem, Elsie?" she asked with that smug smile I knew too well. "I'm trying to understand why the no kids rule apparently doesn't apply to you." Megan let out a short laugh. "Because they made an exception for me, obviously. The rules don't apply to me the same way they do to you." I stared at her, then turned back to my parents. "Is that true?" "Tyler is well behaved. He would have sat quietly through dinner. Why wasn't he allowed to come?" Mom finally sighed. "It's just. Megan's children are. They're special to us." "What?" The word came out as a whisper. Megan stepped closer, her voice low enough that only we could hear. "It's always been pretty obvious they love my kids more than they love Tyler. You should just accept it already." I turned to my parents, waiting for them to jump in to defend their love for their only grandson. But Mom just nodded slightly and Dad remained silent. The room seemed to tilt around me. All these years I'd told myself I was imagining the favoritism, that I was being paranoid or overly sensitive. But here it was, out in the open at last. Without another word, I walked back to the dining room, grabbed my purse, and headed for the door. My throat felt tight, like I might cry or scream if I opened my mouth. I simply walked out the door, got in my car, and drove home. When I arrived, Carol was surprised to see me back so early. Tyler was already in his dinosaur pajamas, getting ready for a movie before bed. After I put Tyler to bed with an extra long story, I came back to the living room where Carol was waiting with 2 glasses of wine. "So, what happened?" she asked, handing me a glass. I told her everything about Megan's kids being there, about the confrontation, and my mother's awful confirmation. "Well," Carol said when I finished, "I don't even know what to say. What do you want to do?" I sipped my wine, the question echoing in my head. I said, "I need to think." After Carol left, I couldn't sleep. I sat on my couch in the dark, memories flooding back one after another, all the signs I'd ignored over the years. When Tyler was born, my parents visited for exactly 1 day. When each of Megan's kids was born, they stayed for a week, cooking and cleaning, doting on the babies. Anytime I asked them to babysit Tyler, they had an excuse. Dad's back was acting up. Mom had a hair appointment. They were too tired. But they regularly took Megan's kids for entire weekends. The worst was during my divorce. I was drowning in legal meetings and court appearances because Greg was fighting me for every cent. I begged my parents to watch Tyler, who was only 3 at the time. "We can do it," Mom had said, "but we'll need to be compensated for our time." I'd been shocked. "You want me to pay you to watch your grandson?" Childcare is expensive these days, Dad had added. We're on a fixed income. So I paid them the going rate for a professional babysitter in our area, which they had researched and presented to me. Meanwhile, they regularly watched Megan's kids for free. There was the time Tyler got the flu. I couldn't miss work. I'd already taken too many days off dealing with divorce proceedings. When I called my parents, Mom said, "We'll need double the usual rate if he's sick. We can't risk catching something at our age." And the Christmas gifts. Megan's kids always got expensive electronics, clothes from trendy stores, and the latest toys. Tyler got practical items, socks, educational books, a cheap watch last year that broke within a week. How had I not seen it clearly before? Or rather, how had I allowed myself to keep making excuses for them? And then there was the money. 3 years ago, Mom had called me in tears. "The property taxes went up again," she'd said. "And with your father's medication costs, we just can't make ends meet anymore." I'd immediately offered to help. "How much do you need?" "Maybe $1,000 a month," she'd suggested tentatively. "Just until we get back on our feet." 3 years later, I was still sending them $1,000 every month, no questions asked. Money that could have gone into Tyler's college fund. Money that could have allowed me to fix the leak in my bathroom ceiling or replace my aging car. And Megan, she was always calling with some financial emergency too. Her car needed repairs. One of the kids needed dental work not covered by insurance. She and Dan wanted to take the kids to Disney, but were a little short. By morning, I had made some decisions. The first thing I did was grab my phone and open my banking app. I found the recurring transfer to my parents' account and canceled it. Next, I texted my boss, "Remember all that vacation time I've been accumulating? I'd like to take 2 weeks starting as soon as possible." Steve texted back almost immediately. "About time. You've earned it. How's next Monday sound?" I smiled for the first time in what felt like days. Then I opened my laptop and started searching for vacation packages to Hawaii. Tyler had been begging to see real volcanoes since his dinosaur phase began, and I'd always told him someday. Why not now? Within an hour, I had booked flights and a beachfront hotel in Maui for the following week. It cost nearly all of my savings, but for once, I didn't feel guilty about spending money on ourselves. When Tyler woke up, I made him chocolate chip pancakes, a special treat for weekends only, usually. "Guess what?" I said as he drenched his stack in maple syrup. "How would you like to go see real volcanoes in Hawaii?" He launched himself at me, sticky hands and all, hugging me tightly. This is the best day ever. The days leading up to our vacation passed quickly. My parents called several times, but I let their calls go to voicemail. I wasn't ready to talk to them yet. I needed this time away to think clearly. 5 days after the anniversary party, my phone lit up with Mom's number while I was making dinner. I ignored it as usual, but then she called again immediately and again. By the 4th call, I was worried something might be wrong, so I answered. "Hello. Elsie, did you forget something?" Mom's voice was sharp. No greeting. I paused, mentally checking my calendar. "No, I don't think so." "The money, Elsie." The transfer didn't go through this month. So that's what this was about. Not concern for me. Not an apology for what happened at the party. Just the money. I didn't forget, I said quietly. I canceled the transfer. "I'm not sending money anymore." "You can't do that." Her voice rose in panic. "We're counting on that money for our bills." "I'm sure Megan will help you out," I said, surprised by how calm I felt. "Ask her. She's the one with the special children you love so much." "Elsie, that's not fair. You know we love." I cut her off. "Don't say you love Tyler the same way. We both know it's not true. And while you're talking to Megan, tell her I won't be helping her out financially anymore either." I hung up, feeling a strange mixture of guilt and relief. My phone immediately started ringing again, but I turned it off. The next day, we left for Hawaii. As our plane took off, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. For 2 weeks, It would be just Tyler and me, with no family drama, no financial burdens, no painful reminders of where I stood with my parents. Hawaii was everything we'd hoped for and more. Tyler was fascinated by the volcanoes, thrilled by the ocean waves, and enchanted by the luau dancers. I took hundreds of photos of his smiling face and found myself smiling just as much. We were having breakfast by the pool on our third day when my phone, which I'd finally turned back on, started buzzing nonstop with text notifications. First from Mom, "We can't believe you'd abandon us like this after all we've done for you." Then Dad, "Your mother is very upset. You need to call her right away." Megan, "What the hell, Elsie? Mom says you cut them off. They're your parents." I put the phone down without responding. The barrage of texts and calls continued throughout our vacation. My parents alternated between guilt trips, angry demands, and pleas for understanding. Megan's messages grew increasingly hostile, calling me selfish and heartless. I stopped reading them after the 5th day. Instead, I focused on building sandcastles with Tyler, teaching him to snorkel, and watching the sunset over the ocean each night. "This is the best trip ever," Tyler said on our last evening as we sat on the beach eating shave ice. "Can we do this every year?" "Maybe not Hawaii every year," I laughed. "But yes, we'll take more trips together. I promise." When we returned home, tanned and refreshed, I had almost forgotten about the family situation. That illusion lasted less than 24 hours. I had just finished unpacking our suitcases the next afternoon when there was a loud knock at the door. Looking through the peephole, I saw my parents and Megan standing in the hallway of my apartment building. I opened the door partway, keeping the chain latched. "What are you doing here?" "We need to talk," Dad said, his voice firm but his eyes nervous. "I don't think we have anything to discuss." Megan pushed forward. "Elsie, honey, we thought about what happened and we realized we were wrong. We shouldn't have let Megan bring her children to the party when we told you not to bring Tyler. We're really sorry." Dad added, "Can we come in and talk about this?" I might have believed them if Megan hadn't rolled her eyes behind their backs. This wasn't sincere regret. This was just about getting the money flowing again. "I don't think so," I said. "You're only here because I stopped paying you. If I hadn't done that, you'd never have acknowledged there was even a problem." "That's not true," Mom protested, but her eyes slid away from mine. "Look," Megan cut in. "Just grow up and start helping them again. They need the money, and you know it." "And what about you, Megan? Are you helping them financially?" I asked. She crossed her arms. "I have 3 kids to support." "And I have one," I replied. "One that I'm saving for now because he matters to me, even if he doesn't matter to his grandparents." Mom's face hardened. "If this is how you want to be, fine. But I'm going to let the whole family know how you've turned your back on us. How you've decided money is more important than family." I almost laughed at the irony. "Do whatever you need to do, Mom. I really don't care anymore." "You'll regret this," Megan hissed as I started to close the door. "No," I said, looking her directly in the eyes. "I really won't. And if you all don't stop calling and showing up uninvited, I'll file a harassment complaint with the police." I shut the door firmly, turned the deadbolt, and leaned against it. I could hear them arguing in the hallway for a few minutes before they finally left. Tyler emerged from his bedroom where he'd been playing with the souvenirs we'd brought back. "Was that Grandma and Grandpa? Are they mad at us?" I knelt down to his level. "They're upset, but not because of anything you did. It's grown-up stuff, and you don't need to worry about it." He nodded seriously. "Okay, can we have pizza for dinner?" I smiled and ruffled his hair. "Absolutely." That night, after Tyler was asleep, I sat down with my laptop and created a new savings account specifically for his college fund. Into it, I transferred the $1,000 I would have sent to my parents. For months had passed since that confrontation at my door. For months of no family dinners, no holiday gatherings, no casual phone calls asking how my day went. For months of peace. My cousin Rachel called about 5 months after the door incident. "Your mom is telling everyone you abandoned them," she said. She said that you cut them off financially without warning and now they can't pay their bills. Did she mention that I've been giving them $1,000 a month for 3 years? I asked. Or that they paid me nothing but demanded payment to watch their own grandson? Rachel was silent for a moment. No, she left that part out. So what really happened? Elsie asked. I told her everything. The anniversary party, the favoritism, the years of unequal treatment. When I finished, Rachel sighed heavily. I'm so sorry. I had no idea it was that bad. I mean, I noticed they seemed more excited about Megan's kids, but I thought it was just because she had more of them. That's what I told myself too for a long time, I replied. Rachel hesitated before continuing. Your mom got a part-time job at the library. Your dad's cutting back on his golf games. They're managing, but it's definitely an adjustment for them. I absorbed this information, surprised at the twinge of guilt I felt. And Megan? I asked. From what I hear, she and Dan had to cancel their annual beach vacation. Apparently, they're all blaming you for their financial troubles, Rachel said. Sounds like they're all learning some valuable life lessons. I said, trying to sound indifferent, but it wasn't my concern anymore. I couldn't make their financial problems my responsibility again. I used the extra money I now had to fix up our apartment, new paint in the living room, a better mattress for Tyler, the bathroom ceiling repair I'd been putting off for 2 years. I started contributing more to my 401k and adding steadily to Tyler's college fund. We took weekend trips to the zoo, the science museum, the water park 2 towns over, small adventures that made Tyler's eyes light up the way they had in Hawaii. I even started dating again, casually, just coffee or dinner while Tyler was at a friend's house or with Carol. Nothing serious yet, but it felt good to remember I was more than just a mom and a daughter. Last week, I came across an old photo album while cleaning out the hall closet. Inside were pictures from my childhood, birthdays, holidays, family vacations. Looking at them now, I noticed something I'd never seen before. In almost every picture, I was reaching toward my parents, a hand outstretched, leaning in their direction, always seeking connection. They were almost always turned slightly away, focused on something else. Usually Megan. There was one photo that hit me particularly hard. My 5th birthday party. I was blowing out candles on a cake, but neither of my parents was looking at me. They were both watching Megan, who was reaching for a present that wasn't hers to open. Tyler found me sitting on the floor, surrounded by photos. Can I see the pictures? Sure, I said. I pulled him onto my lap and showed him photos of me as a little girl, but I put away the birthday party one. Some realizations are too heavy for 7-year-old shoulders. Yesterday, I ran into my dad at the grocery store. It was the first time I'd seen any of my family members since the confrontation at my door. He looked older somehow, the lines in his face deeper. We stood awkwardly in the produce section, neither sure what to say. How are you? He finally asked. Good. We're good. How about you and Mom? Managing? He shifted uncomfortably. Your mother's working at the library now. I heard she doesn't like it much. Says the supervisor is too demanding. I nearly grinned. Mom had never liked having her actions dictated to her. That's terrible. We now get some assistance from Megan. But not as much as you did. That was meant to make me feel bad, I think. It didn't. How's Tyler? I was surprised when Dad inquired. He's fantastic. He joined a soccer team last spring and excelled in math. Dad gave a nod. That's excellent. He was always a bright youngster. Did he say this about my son for the first time? I was unable to recall another. Well, Dad replied as he looked at his watch, I'd better leave. In the car, your mother is waiting. All right. Inform her that I greeted her. Do you think you might come by sometime? He asked when he paused. Bring Tyler over, perhaps. Desperate for any indication of approval, the previous version of myself would have seized this opportunity. However, I was no longer that person. I don't think we're ready for that yet, Dad. Slowly, he nodded. I understand. It didn't really matter that I wasn't certain he did. His comprehension was no longer necessary for my mental well-being. I said, "Take care," and I meant it. I didn't wish them bad in spite of everything. I simply could not continue to burn myself alive to keep them warm. I felt somewhat lighter as I completed the checkout process and made my way to my car. I had anticipated that seeing my dad would reignite old wounds, but it didn't. Rather, it had validated my intuition that I had made the proper choice for both Tyler and myself. I'm not sure whether I'll ever be able to make amends with Megan or my parents. Perhaps one day, if they are able to sincerely own their wrongdoing and make apologies. However, I'm not waiting for that day to arrive by holding my breath or putting my life on pause. I'm concentrating on creating the greatest life possible for Tyler and myself right now. He deserves a mother who respects herself enough to confront injustice. And I'm worthy of donning my own oxygen mask first. Life is too short, as they say, to waste it seeking unfulfilled acceptance. You're too valuable to squander on individuals who can't or won't show you the kind of love you deserve. Despite how difficult it was, I'm glad I eventually learned that lesson. For Tyler and I are free now. Free to establish our own customs as a family. Free to be in the company of individuals who truly care about us. Free from restrictions and comparisons to live and love.